Which is the first autobiography in Western literature? Which is the first autobiography spiritually? Which is the first Puritan autobiography? Which autobiography started the tradition of addiction literature, drug addiction? Don't be scared of these questions because by the end of this video, you will know it all. Hello, how are you? This is Heena from Team Vallath. Today's lecture is based on autobiographies in British literature. The book I'm following is from Vallath, Literary Master Reference Book. Okay. Now, what my idea for this lecture is, first, I will give you slides of all the major autobiographies, and then I'm going to go on page number 94, in which we have given a list of the autobiographies, and I will read it out to you. Okay? So, pehle come to my slides and then we'll move on to the book. Let's start with autobiographies in British literature. But before that, what is an autobiography? Let's study like a baby today. A narrative in which a person writes the story of his or her own life. When I talk about myself, when it includes memory, experience, reflection about me, when I write in I, that is in first person, it is based on real life. When I am the author, I am the narrator, I am the protagonist, that becomes my autobiography, right? So, a narrative in which a person writes the story of his or her own life is an autobiography. Features are written in I, that is first person, based on real life, includes memory, experience, reflection. Author is the narrator, is the protagonist, right? Let's move on now. Look at Confessions by Saint Augustine. Written in 4th century AD, Confessions by Saint Augustine was written in Latin. And this is the first spiritual autobiography in Western literature. So if the question comes, see, I'll tell you, this is not an area in which you expect a lot of questions. 1 or 2 is enough. But then I have decided that we'll take it slow and steady for the upcoming NET exam. You should know all this because this forms the base of literature, right? 1-2 question is okay, but you should know all this being a literature student, right? So if the question appears anywhere other than NET, which is the first spiritual autobiography in Western literature, what should be the answer? Confessions by Saint Augustine, right? Now, don't get confused. The Confessions is a 1782 autobiography by Jean-Jacques Rousseau or Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So, Confessions is by Saint Augustine, 4th century AD. The Confessions is by Rousseau of 1782. Easy? Very easy. Let's move on. Next autobiography, the Book of Margery Kempe. Listen to the keyword here. First autobiography in English. Which is the first autobiography in English? The answer should be the Book of Margery Kempe. Written in 15th century, this book is based on mysticism. Why? Because Margery Kempe, who was an English Christian mystic and a pilgrim, she talks about her visions of interacting with the Trinity. She talks about her visions of interaction with Jesus Christ. So this book, the Book of Margery Kempe, is based on mysticism, and it is the first autobiography in English. Easy? The Book of Margery Kempe. Let's move on now. Grace Abounding to the Chief of Sinners is a 17th century autobiography by John Bunyan. Bunyan. Repeat. Grace Abounding to the Chief of Sinners. Listen to the important word here. It's a Puritan autobiography. So Bunyan belonged to Puritanism. The Puritan autobiography in English literature is Grace Abounding to the Chief of Sinners. Published in 1666, it talks about Bunyan's inner religious struggle. And also you should know Grace Abounding is a precursor to Pilgrim's Progress, which was an allegory by Bunyan. Will you remember? Yes, you will. Let's move on now. An apology for the life of Mr. Colley Cibber. An apology for the life of Mr. Colley Cibber is the first secular autobiography in English. Now, the question is, which is the first secular autobiography in English? The answer should be An Apology for the Life of Mr. Colley Cibber. Okay. In my last lecture, I spoke about the poet laureates of England, and Colley Cibber's name was there. Colley Cibber was the poet laureate of England from 1730 to 1757. Look at Colley Cibber on the screen. And actually, this photograph was the cover of his autobiography. Published in the year 1740, written by Colley Cibber. It's an autobiography of Cibber's career, and it also talks about the Restoration Theatre. Easy? An Apology for the Life of Mr. Colley Cibber is the first secular autobiography in English. Let's move on. Which book or which autobiography started the tradition of addiction literature? Or you can say, which is the drug autobiography in English literature? Drug. It is The Confessions of an English Opium-Eater by Thomas De Quincey. Quincey was addicted to opium. He wrote about it in his book Confessions of an English Opium-Eater, published in 1821. Belongs to the Romantic period. Look at Quincey on the screen. You will remember all this. It's so easy when we do slide by slide. Makes our life easier. We are not scared when we look at it again, right? So take it slow, general and gentle, and move on with me. Next is the Prelude by William Wordsworth. Question. Which is a poetical autobiography among the following options? Or an autobiographical epic is the Prelude. It is so big. Why is it called epic? You know, Wordsworth spent around 50 years revising this book. So there were different versions of it published in 1799, 1805, also one other year, then 1850. The final version, although came in the year 1850. Therefore, I have written The Prelude by William Wordsworth, published in 1850. Belongs to, of course, the Romantic period. Wordsworth is a romantic. It's a poetical autobiography. It's an autobiographical epic, right? The Prelude by W.W., published in 1850. Easy? Very easy. Let's move on. Apologia pro vita sua is by John Henry Newman. Look at Newman. He was a cardinal, published in the year 1864. Apologia is a Victorian religious autobiography. So come on, what should the question be? Which is the Victorian religious autobiography in English literature? The answer should be Apologia pro vita sua by J.H. Newman. Why is it an apologia? It's a defense that Newman wrote when he converted to Catholicism. Okay? It's a defense he wrote when he converted to Catholicism. Apologia was published in 1864. And the man on the screen is, of course, Newman. Let's move on. Who is this person on the screen? He is J.S. Mill, John Stuart Mill. His autobiography was called Autobiography. What is the autobiography of John Stuart Mill? Autobiography. It was published posthumously in the year 1873, and it offers a first-hand account of Mill's rigorous education under his father, James Mill. So the question that can be framed is, which is the intellectual autobiography which talks of education, women's rights, working towards the progression of society? It's Autobiography by J.S. Mill, published posthumously in 1873. Nice? Very nice. Now, there are some net trap questions that you should be aware of, okay? Which of these is not an autobiography? The correct answer will be The Life of Samuel Johnson, because The Life of Samuel Johnson was not written by Johnson. It was written by James Boswell. James Boswell wrote The Life of Samuel Johnson, published in the year 1791. So it's a biography of Johnson, written by Boswell. Easy. And the next trap question is Robinson Crusoe of 1791. Is it an autobiography? No, it's a fictional autobiography. Robinson Crusoe of 1791 is a fictional autobiography which was intentionally made to sound real, look real, written real places. This was written by the author Daniel Defoe. Who wrote Robinson Crusoe? Daniel Defoe. He made it sound like a true account of Crusoe's character life, right? But let me tell you, Robinson Crusoe is partly based on the real life experience of Alexander Selkirk. These are very, trivias that have been asked here and there. So Robinson Crusoe is actually based on real life experience of Alexander Selkirk. Here I'm done with the session. I'm opening my book now, Literary Master Reference Book, page number 94 and 95. See, this is important what I'm about to read now. Autobiographies and the authors. Okay? I'm starting from last to first. So I'm starting from 2000. I'll tell you the names of the autobiographies and authors. London, the biography is by Peter Ackroyd. London, the biography is by Peter Ackroyd. Long Walk to Freedom, 1994, is by Nelson Mandela. Long Walk to Freedom is by Mandela. Next autobiography is Walking in the Shade and Under My Skin. Both are by Doris Lessing. So Lessing's autobiographies are Under My Skin and Walking in the Shade. Next, Boy Tales of Childhood, 1984, is by Roald Dahl. So Dahl wrote Boy Tales of Childhood. Next is A Sort of Life. This is very, very common. A Sort of Life of 1971 is by Graham Greene. Greene wrote A Sort of Life. The Buried Day is by Cecil Day Lewis. Day and Day. So The Buried Day is by C. Day Lewis. World Within World, the autobiography of Stephen Spender. Of course, Stephen Spender wrote it. So World Within World is the autobiography of Stephen Spender, published in 1951. The Diary of a Young Girl, we all have read it. It's by Anne Frank. Black Boy, 1945, is by Richard Wright. Left Hand, Right Hand of 1944 is by Osbert Sitwell. So Sitwell's autobiography is Left Hand, Right Hand. Next, Blasting and Bombardiering is by Wyndham Lewis. Blasting and Bombardying is by Wyndham Lewis, published in 1937. My Childhood is by Gorky. So Maxim Gorky wrote My Childhood. The Autobiography of a Super Tramp is by W.H. Davies. Autobiography of a Super Tramp is by Davies. Next, The Education of Henry Adams is, of course, by Henry Adams, published in 1907. De Profundis is an 1897 autobiography by Oscar Wilde. Repeat, De Profundis is by Oscar Wilde. Next is The Interesting Narrative of the Life of Olaudah Equiano is 1789, of course, by Olaudah Equiano himself. The Interesting Narrative of the Life of Olaudah Equiano. And we are done. I hope you loved today's lecture. If you did, of course, you have to like, you have to comment. I read all the comments and it gives me a lot of appreciation to continue. I'm Heena from Team Vallath. Take very good care of yourself. Okay, bye.